Well, welcome, Joe Bonsall from
Thank you,
the Ridge Boys. We are backstage at the Grand Ole Opry in dressing room number 1.
Yeah, this is the old Roy Acuff dressing room, they call it.
Okay.
So you see pictures of Roy, I think, all over the place. Yeah.
Is there a single dressing room that you think you probably have not reserved at some point over the many times you've played at the Opry?
I'll tell you now, over all of this time, now since we've been members of the Opry in 2000, was it 14?
I think 11.
11?
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Jeez. Time goes by fast.
Yeah.
But we usually are in here. They usually put the 4 of us in here, and our band, I think they're next door.
Okay.
And but over all of these years, I think we've been in most all of them, or tape TV or something.
Right.
All of these historic dressing rooms.
Yeah.
Each one has a story, you know. So.
It's certainly.
But this is the prestigious one. This is the Roy Acuff.
Yes. Hence number 1.
Hence.
So you are the tenor of the group.
Pretty much.
Yeah. And I interviewed, like I said, Richard, who's the bass singer.
Unmistakably the bass singer.
Unmistakably the bass singer. I'll never forget the first syllable from when I answered the phone, and I was like, that's got to be him.
And the funny thing about Richard, like when he calls you, when he calls one of us even, says, hello, this is Richard. I know it's Richard. How could you not know that voice?
He could say it in Chinese, and you know exactly who it's going to be.
But yeah, I sing the high part.
Yeah.
Or what's left.
Well, so, I interviewed Rick Springfield shortly before interviewing Richard, and 1981, I was not born yet, but looking back on it, it was such an interesting year for the pop charts because you had Jesse's Girl, you had Betty Davis Eyes, you had
Celebrate Good Times Come On.
Celebrate Good Times Come On. You had the Pointer Sisters doing Slow Hand. Lady,
by Kenny, and I Love a Rainy Night by Eddie Rabbit.
Absolutely.
It was quite a year,
It was quite a year.
It really was. And of course, Elvira was a big record that year. So.
And that was just about what I was going to say. You guys had this, you had tons of country hits. Right. You had topped the country charts many times by then. And Dwayne is typically the lead singer.
Mm-hmm.
But on this one, you got the lead, and it became this massive crossover pop hit.
It's crazy.
So what was that like for you to have a song that you sang lead on suddenly be the one where...
Well, I didn't really think too much about that, to be honest. Because I've sang lead on other songs, not the hits up to that point.
Mm-hmm.
Dwayne's voice usually carried the hits. I think Golden carried I Wish You Could Have Turned My Head and Trying to Love Two Women before 1981.
Uh-huh.
And trying to think, I don't think I had... Now, Dwayne sang the lead on most of those songs from 77 to 81.
Mm-hmm.
And when Don Gant, a music song plugger from Acuff Rose, came to our sessions, we were working on the Fancy Free album, and we were just about finished. And he said, man, I just heard a bar band in Texas do Rodney Crowell's version of Elvira, written by Dallas Frazier. He said, the whole time I was listening to this group sing, I thought, my gosh, the Oak Ridge Boys could nail this to the wall, man. Richard could do the Oom Papa Mau Maus. It could just be incredible, really different than the way anybody else had done it. And Chancey, our producer, said, sure, well, let's give it a try, he said, So we get in the studio with the musicians, and we sang through it a couple of times. The idea was for me to do the verses. And I never did it like the old Elvira's. I kind of did my own take, which,
looking
back on it, was a good idea.
Yes.
And most of the groups back then, even Kenny Rogers in the first edition, they had a weird kind of minor key Elvira on an album. It wasn't a single, but
I have to check that out.
Elvira. It was weird.
It sounds.
But Rodney Crowell had it, and Kenny had it with the first edition, and of course Dallas Frazier had a regional hit with it. But we just put our spin on it, had a lot of fun in the studio. I think we sang through it 3 times. All I remember about that session was everybody was smiling, everybody was having fun.
Yeah.
And it worked out well. It seemed like it did. But we didn't really realize until a couple months later, Fancy Free album was going to come out in March. We're on the Pacific Northwest tour in January and February. And right around the end of January, we're playing Spokane, Washington. And we'd been rehearsing some of the new songs. And said to the people, I said, we've got some new songs coming out in March. Our new album, it's all done, and we'd like to do a couple of them for you. And we did. I think we sang Fancy Free, we might have sang a few other songs, and then we sang Elvira. Well, holy cow, man, the audience acted like we gave them a condo in Montserrat. They freaked out. So much so, we did it again.
Yeah.
And after that, the same response. Well, the next several nights on that tour, Portland, Oregon, I forget where else, on down into California, every night, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we called MCA and said, hey, I'm not sure what's going on out here, but something's going on.
Yeah.
And you need to consider, I think, Elvira as a single. Well, they released it in March, and from March to June, it went to #1 country. And then as we released Fancy Free as our second country single, it crossed over pop. And then all summer of '81, it was like everybody of every age group was singing Oom Papa Mau Mau with the Ridge Boys.
Right.
And it became one of those hits that even today, I mean, if you're still here when we're on tonight, you'll see
we'll
it here tonight.
Yeah.
It's just a magical song. People want to hear it.
Well, and it's so funny because I was just saying, like, I wasn't born yet, and I'm not, a spring chicken, myself. You're a great grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
So, to have a song that has endured, the transcendence of generations,
Right.
and what's it like to see, young kids, your great grandchildren's age, singing along to every word of those verses that you're singing?
I think the kids helped make that a hit. And as years have gone by, decades actually have gone by, 41 years have gone by since it came out. Still, people's kids love Elvira. We see on Twitter and stuff all the time, people saying, here's my son singing it, and a little kid singing Elvira, singing it in the car, singing it somewhere. So, I don't know, that's one that the kids kind of latched onto, lucky for us. But, it was just one of those songs, man. I mean, I could be riding through Hendersonville and a van full of girl softball players would go by and they're all singing Elvira.
Yeah, not knowing that you're driving past them.
No, this is incredible. Major league ball games, minor league, NFL games, they were playing Elvira in the stadiums, and everybody standing up and singing along, kind of like they do with the Neil Diamond song now, Sweet Caroline.
Yes.
Everybody in the big ballpark is going, la, 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 Sweet Caroline. Well, man, they were going Oom Papa Mau Mau for quite a few years with us. So it's a big record. Big record. We've never had anything to match it. We've had a few that come close. Bobby Sue. Bobby Sue was a song that that sold over 1 million singles. That Elvira sold like millions of singles.
Yeah, tons.
Pretty crazy.
Right. Well, so we are backstage at the Opry, and Trisha Yearwood tonight flipped the switch to make the Opry go pink. And so something I wanted to touch upon, because as we've been going back and forth on Twitter, it dawned on me how, of course, you're the Oak Ridge Boys, but female icons of country, so many of them you have really in-depth histories with, from the start to the later years, and this year has been a tough one for some of those losses.
Yes.
And I was really touched by how many wonderful tributes you had to them. So if it's okay, I just wanted to touch upon a couple names and share whatever comes to mind. And one that we had just spoken about was Loretta Lynn, where I saw how, even on Twitter, you had some really nice exchanges.
I think what I said on Twitter as soon as I found out she passed away, my first thought was, well, England lost their queen last week, we lost ours this week.
Yeah.
And that kind of went viral, and a lot of press picked it up and everything. But Loretta was very special. I mean, who didn't love Loretta? She was just honest as can be, sweetheart, wonderful woman, and a great career, and one of the great American success stories, man, as far as coming from nothing to being a iconic legend. And so, yeah, I think Loretta will really be missed. She made it, was that 90?
Yes.
So, she made it to 90 years old. I say it's a life well lived.
Right.
God bless you, Loretta Lynn.
Yeah.
Member of the Opry longer than anybody else ever. 60 years.
Wow.
She was a member of this Opry for 60 years. She's played the Opry as a member.
Yeah.
As a member of the Grand Ole
Let alone that pre-membership. Yeah. Wow.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah. Well, another name, of course, is Naomi Judd, who I know you had a lot of history with. I was just reading about the show you did at Radio City Music Hall with the Judds.
Yeah.
So anything about her that you would like people to know?
Well, when the Judds first came out and had their first couple of hit records, our management and their management team put the two of us together on a lot of shows.
Yeah.
We played at tons of shows with Wynonna and Naomi. And as years have gone by, we've been good friends. We collide once in a while on one thing or another. And of course, Wynonna continued to sing on her own. So we did a lot of dates with just Wynonna too. In fact, a funny little story about Wynonna. When we were with RCA, for about, 6 minutes. We were on RCA Records, and they had a song plugger there, and we had a song called He Is She Is His Only Need, written by Dave Loggins. We thought the song was great. And the A&R guy at RCA said, nah, it's for a solo act, it ain't for you guys, and threw it in the can.
Oh my gosh. That was one of her big solo
That was her
smashes.
first big single as a solo artist. I figured, hey, you stupid idiots at RCA. Anyway, that guy's, I think, working at Jiffy Lube now. He's not an A&R anymore. But
I remember Roger Daltrey of The Who said, that's why they work at desks and we're on stage.
Right. That's a good one.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, the death of Naomi Judd was just astounding to all of us. And then the fact that we know she took her own life. We know she had a lot of problems. She had some
fought them
real
for a long time.
Mental problems, fought the demons.
Right.
And a lot of times when you got somebody fighting those demons, they either come around with God's help or they don't make it. And in Naomi's case, she just didn't make it. And that's I think it was one of the saddest things I ever heard.
Yeah, absolutely. Very shocking. And we'll be talking about her for a long time because what a legacy she left.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Not the legacy of Loretta, but a legacy of the Judge, which is just incredible because I was on the selection board. I don't know if this is good to put on the air or not, but I was on the selection board at the Hall of Fame for 3 years with the Country Music Association.
Yes.
And I brought up the Judds every year. I thought they were deserving. And it seemed
I was shocked it took them that long.
And it seemed like every year it kind of disappeared. You know what I mean? Things just kind of go away. And and this person gets it. All 3 years I was there, I spoke up for the Judds, and nothing ever happened. A couple years later, boom, they're in the Hall. So I was glad they did that, put them in the Hall of Fame. They're deserving of the Hall. Right. And I guess they're out there on a big tour right now, celebrating.
Yep. I just saw it in Toledo.
Yeah, did you see it?
The day after Marie Osmond and Marietta.
Does Winona really come up on an elevator out of the floor?
She did, yeah. And so I had to get tapped on the shoulder to look over there for the opening. Yeah, it was wonderful.
Oh, that's cool. Well, good for them. I'm glad they're doing it.
Yeah, and the last name, because I know we got to get going. The last name, and this is going back to the beginning, and it's a name I haven't heard too much in recent years, but Jody Miller. She was real special to you guys from the start.
From the start. When we first signed with Jim Halsey in 1975, and Jim just turned 92, and he's still our manager.
Wow.
And godfather. He still is our leader, our spiritual leader, our everything.
Him and Barry Gordy would have a great conversation, I'm sure.
They knew each other.
Yeah.
They knew each other back
We were
in
around the
day.
same age,
Yeah, Jim knew everybody. But, Jim was representing Jody Miller at the time, and she had several hits. This was like 1975 into 76. And we found ourselves opening quite a few shows for Jody. And then, she kind of like disappeared out of the music industry for a long time there. And so I hadn't even seen or heard of her for a long time until I heard that she passed away. Very sad. She was 80, I think, was complications of Parkinson's.
Parkinson's, right. Yeah.
So, as we get older, something's going to get us.
That's true.
Something's waiting behind the dang tree to jump out and bite us.
Yeah, well, one that's still around, I don't know, did you ever cross paths with Bobby Gentry?
I don't know Bobby Gentry at all.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever even met her.
It's been 40 years. It was, I think, CMA's of 82 was her last public appearance, and then it just vanished.
Yeah, well, she just vanished into thin air, too.
Yeah.
Well, there's something good to be said about that.
Yep.
I've always said one of these days, I'm 74 now, pushing 75. I've been in this group for 49 years.
Yep.
I've said on a few occasions, one of these days I'm going to go to my farm and shut the gate and never come out.
Yeah.
But I'm not ready yet.
No.
Right.
So
thanks for having me, brother.
Thank you, Joe.
Appreciate it,
Yeah,
man.
so good to meet you. The Ridge Boys return to the historic People's Bank Theater in Marietta on Friday, August 4th. For tickets and a full list of tour dates, visit oakridgeboys.com.